Welcome to another episode of the Property Developer Show, the podcast. I'm today joined by Daniel Hill, who founded Property Entrepreneur, an education platform for developers moving more so from that kind of next level investing. Retired when you were 35 on an 8-figure portfolio, which is pretty darn impressive.
Thank you.
And I think you said you retired not so long ago, and now you're back.
I've given up. I've retired retiring. Yeah, I tried it 3 times and it's really overrated.
I think once you're in that working environment, I couldn't imagine myself retiring ever.
I think when it gets bad, especially like when we talk about development and things like that, when you get in the heat of stuff and you have a bad year, couple of years, whatever period, you get sick of the sight of it, right? And you think, I never want to do another deal again. I never want to run another business again. But then once you've had enough of a breather, you're like, actually, I'm addicted to it. It's in my blood. Beaches and holidays and gin and tonics are overrated, or you wouldn't want to do it all day, every day.
No, of course. Just on that sort of point then, what did you really embrace that sort of lifestyle, or were you always in the back of your mind like, I'm missing it, I've got that kind of urge to go back again?
Retirement. Yeah, I was sick of business, honestly. I burnt myself to a crisp in like 2017, 18. I got to a point where I had a big national company, head office, 8 offices around the UK. We were doing millions of pounds worth of development every month. And I was burnt to a crisp. I was tired. I was exhausted. And then the pandemic came and I just thought, I was burnt to a crisp. And then the pandemic came and we actually did really well in the pandemic because we were able to play to our strengths in a down market, which is always a great thing to do. Mm-hmm. And we're actually doing the same now. But when the UK got locked down, I thought, if we're going to be locked down somewhere, like this was January, February, I'd rather do it in the sun. Went to Tenerife, did some lockdown there. And then in 1 week, our head of property management and 3 of our property managers handed their notice in. And I just thought, you know what, I'm getting too old for this. I've got to fly back to the UK, sleep on the sofa, not sleep on the sofa, but you know what I mean, sleep in the office and turn the thing around. I thought I'm going to turn it around, sell it. And that was probably one of the best things I did. I sold it at the top of the market, went from a team of 40 down to a team of 4. And then now I love it. It's a sweet spot, do deals, doesn't have all the big noise that you used to have. But I was sick of it at the time and I thought I was done forever. I just thought I just don't want to do it ever again. Mm-hmm. But once I had 6 months off, I was ready to go again.
Do you think it was all kind of worth it in the end to enable you to do what you did?
100%, yeah. Right? It's like I'm not sitting here crying, I've had a rough ride. Entrepreneurship's hard, business is hard, work is hard, life is hard. So you've got to earn your stripes. I think now actually what we teach on Property Entrepreneur is the sweet spot. And it doesn't matter whether you want to work 20 hours a week and have a young family or you want to be the next billionaire empire builder. As long as it's aligned with what you want, then that's cool. And I like to be able to do some deals, make good money, have fun. But I've got my daughter, just started a young family. I don't want to be working 30, 40 hours a week anymore. I like doing it on my own terms. I also enjoy fitness like yourself, leisure. And I just like to keep a balance. And I think that's the sweet spot. Once you've done the hard yards, which you can't skip the gears, then you have the luxury of knowing what deals are easy and which ones are hard, which one's good money, which one's going to be a waste of time. And I think like now for 25 years of hard work, I've now earned my stripes to be where I want to be. And it's great. I love it. I do genuinely love it. But of course, there's days and weeks which do your head in, like when you're trying to exchange or complete or stuff like that. But that comes with the territory.
Going to the point that you sort of mentioned there, going through the gears, what kind of goes into that kind of, because I know, let's skip the first step, I'm kind of orientating towards like the typical person that would be in the property entrepreneur sort of environment. You've got some establishment, you sort of making your way through this industry. This is kind of our audience, by the way.
Okay.
And you kind of now trying to get to that next level. You want to push the boundaries of what you kind of do. The business is very reliant on you, but you want to get to that next level. What goes into creating that?
So I was pretty fortunate. I had 2 very pessimistic business partners or investors, if you like, who'd done, they were towards the end of their career and they'd made their money and wanted to have the fun of getting involved with me and obviously get a return from it. So whilst I did my first maybe like 4-bed HMO and then wanted to go and build 4 tower blocks in a big city, and this is one piece of advice that I got that I had to listen to and I give to everyone now, and nobody will listen to it because why would you? Because you're too, most people are young and enthusiastic. And it said like slow and steady wins the race. And I think especially in property, if you look over the last 30, 40 years, especially for the sort of 2 or 3 decades I've been in this game, every 5 or 10 years you get big names who come out of nowhere, shoot for the sky, and you look at them and you think, wow, how have they come from nothing to something to everything overnight? But then as soon as there's a downturn or a correction, they all very quickly disappear. And if you look over the last 25 years, there's not many names that have been in the industry decade in, decade out. And we're fortunate to weathered that because we've done it slow and steady. So I think for all your audience that are listening, it's very easy to get seduced by go from doing one refurb to building 6 houses. You've got to earn your stripes. You've got to go through the gears. That's why that 20 years for me of cutting my teeth, literally I started on the building, shoveling the sand. I think that education is worth its weight in gold because there's a great book called Psychology of Money. Have you read that?
Yeah, it's a really good book.
And the main message through the whole book is it's not what you do in the game, it's how long you stay in the game.
Yeah.
And like if you can just stretch and last 1 decade or 2 decades, that incremental growth over that period without having to start again is where serious money's made. And that definitely came true for me.
I think it's just boring is best, isn't it? You know, it's just doing the boring things repeatedly over long periods. It's like producing this podcast. It is generally, apart from this part, this is a great part, but generally 95% of the time it's boring. But that's the work behind the scenes that make and produce like a good episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
you
doing
think
that,
about the triangle, the little fun, sexy bit is at the top.
Yeah.
Everything else is the work.
Yeah.
It's the iceberg, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of, mindset have you got to be in? Have you kind of got to go through those hurdles, or have you got to trip up a couple of times to realize that? Because I know you said, people aren't going to listen to that, but how can you get that message across to people so they don't necessarily make that mistake?
It's a really good question, isn't it? And ultimately, none of us know everything. So the aim of the game is not to make no mistakes, it's to make less mistakes. And when you do make a mistake, that it costs you a day's work, not the house sort of thing. And all of that development really is just, I was watching a couple of your podcasts on the way up, and the general vibe of development is like, you're never going to get rid of risk. It's like risk management. And I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
When people listen to our podcast, The Blueprint, I talk about deals where, and this is quite controversial, but I very rarely see my sites. I don't visit them, I don't view them, I don't see them when they're being built out. But that's not because I'm sort of flippant or blasé with it. It's more because I've managed the risk. And for me, investment and development is a paper exercise. And I'm looking at what are the risks and how can they be managed so that whatever it is, the one I was watching before I came up, the chap was saying about you want to have plan A, B, C, and D. And that's what we teach the same. We say you want to have plan A to F, and F stands for thank F. I've got that one.
Yeah.
Because when it goes wrong, you've got to just be able to rattle through the list. And I've had that. I've had failed planning apps. I've had sites go wrong, contractors go bust. And as long as it just means you move through the strategies, it's fine. When you buy a car park for £1 million cash and put planning on it to build 300 PBSA units, there's not many plan Bs for that. It's either a car park or it's a build. So we try and do stuff where it would be almost impossible, touch wood, to lose money. And in 25 years, we still haven't lost money on a site, which is, again, touch wood, because of the stuff we buy.
Yeah, are you sort of looking at then sort of from the off, literally, this is what the offer is based on. We've already got A, B, C, D. We know that these are the direction we can go in. This is the reason that we're offering that, and that's sort of best and final. That's your methodology then. So. Yeah,
so Warren Buffett talks about value investing, where he buys stocks, where he looks at them and they're just fundamentally worth more than he's paying. They might have a net asset value of 10 billion and he can buy them for 6. And he just looks at that and thinks, well, that's fundamentally a good price. Mm-hmm. That's what I've done for, this will be our 16th year doing deals, like developments. And I would say in that period, all the stuff we've bought, we've made our money when we've bought it. Mm-hmm. So I'll buy buildings blind in the middle of the pandemic, couldn't view them even if I wanted to. And I was buying them cash without seeing them from the side of a swimming pool, which sounds ridiculous and like gambling. But when I'm buying at like 25, 30 pound a square foot, like I could literally knock the building down and sell the bricks and still not lose money. Mm-hmm. Last month we completed on a site. It's grade 2 listed. It's smack bang in a prime city centre postcode. It's 30,000 square foot and I paid 850 grand for it. And I look at that, like I would have, if that was listed for 2 million, I probably would have found a way to make it viable. When I saw it, I just thought, to me, that's crazy. We were completing on a site today, actually, where I just knew I bought it off market from a distressed seller. Again, I've never walked inside the building. And I actually had to take an insurance policy out from the lender who's doing the bridge for us, because we're buying it at, the seller bought it for 6.4 million. We had a valuation report go out and they valued it at 3.95 million, and we're completing at 3.25 million. And the lender made us take an insurance policy out because it was 700 grand below the market value. because it was basically a distressed sale to say we didn't get sued by the seller. I just look at those sort of deals and think, and it's already existing, I'll spend no money on it. We should be able to refinance it 90 days later for £1 million more. It's already let out, bringing in like 25 grand a month. And you just think, to me, that is what I would say a no-brainer deal. They're the only things we tend to do. We don't do complex things. We don't do marginal things. We just do stuff that's a no-brainer.
I mean, that deal is 16 years worth of experience though, isn't it?
100%. You know, it's that whole analogy, Jim Rohn, is it not Jim Rohn? The chap who wrote I forget what the book's called.
Law of Attraction, Bob Proctor.
The Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey, is it?
That's it, yeah.
And he talks about it's not having the hammer, it's knowing which part to hit.
Yeah.
And he just turns up and in 10 seconds, you know, charges 15 grand or whatever it is. It's that, right? It's like, I can look at deals and see what is a deal because I must have looked at 10,000 that aren't and seen and mentored people who've done deals that aren't, and you see how painful that is.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you, going back to the kind of difficult times how did you deal with those? Obviously, take out the retirement piece. But when you're going through those, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs that get stuck in that trap of thinking, this is just terrible. Where are the exits? What can I do? Sort of thing. How did you kind of push through those difficult times?
Well, my honest answer is I've just got a very high pain threshold and thick skin. When I was younger, 10, 15, 20 years ago, running businesses, it was life and death to me. Everything I took emotionally, personally. I would have blazing rows with friends and family over things because I just was inexperienced and it was all very intense and it was very emotional. Now, one of the things we teach is wealth dynamics. I don't know if you know about profiling.
Yeah.
So I used to be a really high frequency dynamo thinker, million miles an hour, loads of ideas. As I've got older and wiser and made more mistakes, I've become a lot more steel profile. So for me, everything's quite binary. It's quite fact. So I think the pain threshold has been one thing. And the second is, when I say about you can't skip the gears, the other thing is one of our mantras in the development stuff that we teach is you don't want to do deals that are within your confidence or competence. You want to do deals that are within your affordability. So if you do a little HMO or a little 4 flats that cost you 500 grand, but you've got 600 grand in the bank, you've got enough buffer for something to go wrong. Whereas if you've got 600 grand in the bank and you go and do a £3 million deal, when it's delayed a month or it's downvalued or whatever, or the build goes over 10%, you can't afford to absorb that. And I think one of the things I've been forced to do from having 2 really good investors over the years that have taught me is always operate within that sphere of like affordability. So when the pandemic came, like I alluded earlier, we had a great time because we were liquid, we were experienced, we were hungry, we had capacity. And when Wycliffe Mill was one of my builds, we were a week into the build, we just started. I'd put the first couple hundred grand in to get the materials on site. And then lockdown was announced and everything got locked down, including the site. And then when it did reopen like 6 weeks later, Crowd Property couldn't release me the money because they said, the market's changed, we're going to have to get it revalued. And I then had to pay for that site 40 grand a week for labour, materials. We were smuggling like bags of cement in from like anywhere we could get it because it was within my sphere of competence, confidence and affordability. And I think that's the big thing about not skipping the gears is you can afford to take a punch, but you can't afford to get knocked out, right? That's really the reality of it, I think.
And I suppose that's been an organic growth in terms of, deal size. It starts at 100K, then it's 200, then the confidence kind of grows. Yeah,
definitely. I did a presentation at Nottingham Pin recently. I don't tend to do many speaking events anymore, but they literally gave me my break like in 2011, 15 years ago. And they asked me as a favor, would I come back and do their like big event or whatever it was? I said, yeah, absolutely. And I basically did how to go from 100 grand to 100 million in 10 years. And I just showed them all the deals we've done in Nottingham from my first little flat in Hine Hall, which is a 1-bed, 80 grand apartment, up to, 50, 60 flats, 2, 3, 5 million that we're doing now. And it was really linear. There was no step changes. It might be boring, but it's, I'm still here after 15 years doing deals, 25 years in construction, whereas most other big names have, the tide's gone out and they've not been wearing any shorts.
Yep.
Yeah. It's legit, right? That's the crack.
Yeah. I mean, some big characters that I've, witnessed the come up, not here anymore. And I mean, it is a shame, but it comes back to that sort of point of over leveraging and trying to get that shiny penny in terms of, well, it looks great on Instagram, sounds great on Instagram, but the reality of it is you're pretty close to that knife edge. And development, in my opinion, it's just a constant knife edge where one way you're a genius and the other way you're close to bankruptcy. And it depends which way the wind's blowing sometimes, and whether the planning officer feels like he's in a good mood or not, or the lenders, well, we can't give you that money today, unfortunately. And it's just that constant battle. But I suppose coming down to what you say, it's all about the preparation. It's all about buying at the right price, having an ABC plan. It's cutting your teeth. It's not trying to cut the corners. It's going through the gears correctly. I mean, it is that simple. It just takes time and tenacity, I guess.
And before we started recording, I said to you about, it's just property development we're talking about. And you said, no, we can talk about other stuff. My honest opinion at the minute is property development is some of the hardest money that's out there. I've done development since 2014, like bigger sites. And then I took 2 years off to have my daughter in 2 years ago. And this is my first application I'm putting back in. So I'm a little bit out of touch. I've had 2 years out of the market, and I've just bought a new lodge on the River Trent, and we're developing that. And I was there with a few university friends having a beer, figuring out how to lay out the gardens and the pontoon and stuff. And we had some timber delivered the next morning, two pallets of finished timber. And I was just thinking, I wonder how much that is now, because I haven't been in the game for like a couple of years. I've seen stuff's gone up. I was thinking it's probably used to be like $2,000, $2,500. Probably now like 2.8, 3.5. And Andy, our estate manager who runs my sites with the team, I said, how much was that timber you had delivered? He said $6,500. And I was like, wow, I'm like out. And I said, how much is the day rate for the guys laying it or putting it up? And I was thinking day rate for joiners, like used to be probably 220, 230, maybe 250. It's probably 230, 250. And it was like, it's £300 a day now to get any half decent joiner on site. I was like, £300 a day. I know some of your listeners who are doing this day in, day out are like, yeah, I'm out of touch. I am out of touch. I've not done a build for 2 years. Mm-hmm. But in the last 2 years, I've made more money than I've ever made. No planning apps, no big refurbs, no development, no extension, no brickwork, no block work. And we've made between £3 and £5 million a year by doing asset management or doing change of use or doing let to lease. These like more niche strategies which make more money with less risk. One of them, like some of them in 90 days, buying a building, asset managing it and refinancing it 90 days later and making 100, 200, that most recent one on our podcast, The Blueprint, I've done an episode called Can I Make £1 million in 90 days by zero refurb budget? And if I can asset manage that right, in 90 days, we should make £1 million equity. And after refinance, it should still cash flow about 18 grand a month. So net. So we'll see. But that's a lot easier than building. I'm doing a grade 2 star listed, building 66 apartments. That's going to be a lot more demanding. It'll take 2 years, but it's fun, it's sexy, and it's much more interesting than asset management.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I've not to quite the millions of pounds you're talking, but I mean, I've put planning applications in, done a couple of refurbs, and versus like I've traded 3 or 4 deals over and I made more money trading, less hassle, less everything, apart from more money and profit than I did putting all the time equity in to try and get planning, to do the refurbs, deal with trade. It's just the market at the moment. I think there's more emphasis now on obviously the kind of creative strategies, and that's shifted even in the 8 years that I've been sort of in this space. And I suppose from your perspective, coming out or being out of it for 2 years and coming back, I mean, it must be a shock to the system.
It's mad. I genuinely, again, like before we started rolling, I said to you, I genuinely think this planning app, I saw the pre-app today and signed it off. I genuinely think by the time we get planning for that, which will probably be 6 to 12 months, because it's like quite a big, there's a few reasons why it might be a bit contentious. I genuinely think it's possible in 12 months' time when I get planning, it won't be financially viable to build.
Yeah.
Because build costs are going up, depends what stats you look at, but 10 to 15%. And the GDV is going up like 2%. It might even flatline or come down. Mm-hmm. So you look at that gap, and when you're only operating on a 20% margin, I wouldn't build it unless then I'd flip it, or I'd probably have to repurpose it.
Makes sense. I mean, it's crazy. The last 5 years have just been a complete whirlwind. I think if you've not been paying attention, you blink and the next minute things have just shifted. As even in the space of 2 years, it's like, even 6 years ago, prior to COVID, things were just pretty linear, stagnant. You kind of knew where it was going. Now it's like Trump could tweet something and it's like, right, what are we dealing with today?
Yeah, it's bonkers. There was a period for about 12 months. I woke up every morning, looked at the front page. I was on a bridge for about 6.8 million up until January this year. And every morning I woke up and looked at the front page of the Times app, expecting something to happen, someone to press the button, market to collapse, whatever. But that's all the negative. Equally, and we can talk about this if you want, I would honestly say, and I actually did all the data for this last week because we've got our annual super event this week on Property Entrepreneur. And I'm doing a presentation showing why this is the best market in history. And when you track the last 50 years, there's been about 12 different property cycles and there's been 5 major events. If you score each of those 5 events, which were the 5 downturns, the 5 best times to be in property over the last 50 years, if you score each of those on the 5 criteria, what you want as an investor, without question, like it's undisputable, you get all the data, it's undisputable, this is the best time in the last 50 years to be doing deals, but perhaps not build to sell development.
And what formulates that then?
So I would say there's 5 things. I would say the first thing is access to stock or like discounts, motivated sellers. Like I said, we just had to take an insurance policy out because we got 22% below market value. That's not just asking price, that's below the RICS valuation that came in. Motivated sellers, we're seeing it all the time. I could be buying 5 deals a week at the minute if I was happy to buy anything. So discount. Second is finance to buy those deals because global financial crisis, you had loads of discounts. You could buy 30% below, but there was no cash to buy them. The last deal I did, we had 3 bridgers fighting over that one I just shared with you. We had 3 bridging lenders fighting to lend us the money. I've never seen that, having a down market and bridgers lending to give you money or any entry finance. You've then got to have either a strong rental market or the ability to add value. You can do both of those, asset management, yield compression, doing a change of use, or just renting it out, buy something depressed and get a really strong rental market. Occupancy's high, rents are going out, that's the third. Fourth is exit values. If you get all 3 of those, and then a lender will still come out and say, yes, you can get a strong exit value. The exit values we're getting at the minute, I genuinely don't think I could sell the stock for what we're getting stuff revalued at. That one I shared 90 days, made 200 grand, bought it at 575 in an auction, put a lease on it and did a 14 grand refurb. And within 90 days, refinanced it for 850 grand. I couldn't sell that in the current market for 850 grand. In a good market, it would have been worth $1 million. But from a financial return perspective, you could argue it's worth 850. So fourth is getting strong exit values all day long. You're getting those at the minute. I'm seeing them back. And then the fifth is exit finance. Lenders will still lend. And whilst rates are a little bit higher the last few weeks than they have been, there's still endless people that will lend you money. So you scored the last 5 big periods, global financial crisis, COVID, all those key sort of downturns against those 5 criteria. And the current market now trumps all 5 of those and it makes number 1 all day long.
Interesting. Is that across the board or is that more on these sort of bigger deals that you're looking at?
I would say those 5 pillars are at a macro level. The fact that they're the 5 things you need and they exist.
Yeah.
To get into the micro, it's like, what deals would you do? I would do asset management on blocks of flats in my sleep at the moment, and I am. I wouldn't touch a build to sell scheme. I think build to sell is like strategic suicide at the moment. Unless you're doing, like I said, my friend he's got 100 units they're about to break ground on and another 400 units around here. If he was doing build to sell on the open market, I don't think it would ever work. But he's doing selling off plan, forward funded, de-risked, and the lenders love it. He's got a fixed price contract. That would work. But in the main, anywhere north of Nottingham, and I'm not a new build to sell developer, so some people will tell you, yeah, if you do 2 high-end houses, they'll sell and you'll make money. That might be the case. But I'm saying knocking up 50 3-bed houses, when you look at the land cost, the finance cost, the build cost, the time, the risk, and then what it'll actually exit at or sell at, I just think that is high risk. And I think there's other strategies like buying blocks of flats and then asset managing them. That is easy money, completely de-risked, can be done in 3 months, 6 months. And yeah, that at a micro level, it's that whole spectrum.
What sort of level do you think for to be looking at those types of deals, talking about going through the gears again, what sort of level would one be comfortable? I suppose it's a personal preference, but in your mind, where did you hit that point where you think, oh yeah, 600 grand apartment block, we'll just deal with that sort of thing? When was that tipping point for you?
I think it's probably always relative. Like when I did my first ever property, well, not first ever property, my first one in the top of my head, I bought a 3-bed house in Lincoln for 82 grand. I was going to convert it into a 5-bed HMO. And it was the first big purchase I'd done. Before that, I'd done like rent to rents or lease options. And I remember standing on the stairs and thinking, what on earth have I done? Like, what happens if this goes wrong? Because at the time, this was in 2011, so it was 15 years ago. To me, that was £84,000. That was like a lot of money. That was a big deal. Whereas now, I might lend someone 100 grand on a handshake to do a joint venture or something like that. I think it's all relative. And there's always people doing bigger games than you, and there's always people doing smaller games. I think it's all about that relative wealth. If you're used to doing £1 million deals, stay within that sort of thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does completely. I think again that's something that like a bit of a trap for people in property is they kind of get that early success and then they start to look at the bigger projects and thinking, the grass is greener, going from flipping houses or a HMO to then a 5-unit new build scheme, and then they often go to the other side of the fence and realize actually this isn't quite as rosy as I thought it was going to be, and then end up back with a few scars to where they were starting doing the boring things again.
And you've got to appreciate business and development and property. It's like playing roulette wheel, right? Mm-hmm. You spin the wheel a day, a week, a month, a deal, a year, and you put it on green and it lands, or you put it on black, it lands on black, and happy days, you make some money. But as soon as you keep going back to the table and spinning the wheel, you're only one bad call away from like nothing. And we won't have time to go through it today, and off the top of my head, I probably can't remember it, but there's a model we teach called the 10 layers of wealth. And like level 1 is just to be able to earn enough money to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And the problem is most people just stay in level 1 all the time. Whereas what you want to do is go through the gears. Like up until last year, my portfolio was geared at 19%. That's ultimate like low risk. Whereas 15 years ago, I had everything geared up to 75% loan to value, commercial valuations, all money out. And I was just rolling the dice all the time. So I think as you go through it, you want to hold more, I'll hold 12-month working capital now. Whereas back in the day, I would have been lucky to be able to pay my next drawdown on my refurb or something.
Yeah.
And I think there's a podcast on the Blueprint podcast called the 10 Layers of Wealth. And the people that we've seen be really successful through our program are the ones that just follow it step by step. And yes, it probably takes them 5 years to actually get to a really good, strong, wealthy position, but they're still here a decade later, whereas all the competition have, just dropped the ball or, lost at the roulette wheel.
As kind of a brief overview then, what is the key to building that kind of sustainable wealth?
Well, there's 3 layers to wealth. We call it the wealth hierarchy or the wealth pyramid. Cash flow is level 1. So like the aim of the game first is cash flow, which is like salary. Mm-hmm. Do some strategies that will pay the bills. So having a podcast or running a letting agency or having a HMO portfolio or service accommodation. It's hard work. It's noisy. There's work to do, but it pays the bills. You get your YouTube subscriptions, you get your HMO income, whatever it is. But the problem is everyone does that and makes their $2,000 a month, $5,000 a month so they can live. And the first thing they do is nicer car, bigger house. And they're like, right, what could be better than 20 HMO rooms, 100 HMO rooms? And before you know it, they've built this big noisy animal and they're not really progressing anywhere. They're getting rich, arguably, but actually as the revenue grows, the margin tends to compress. So what you want to do instead is get your salary covered, 20 grand a year, 50 grand a year, 100 grand a year, whatever you need to survive, and then stop and do your podcast, your HMOs, your SA on like 2 days a week. And then with the other 3 days, move to level 2, which is profit. And like you said earlier about deal sourcing or packaging or flipping, you don't really get wealthy until you build your balance sheet. But most noisy portfolios and strategies are profit and loss. Once you've got enough money to pay the bills, start getting wealthy, not rich. And then when you focus on balance sheet, it's about lumps of cash. So flips, deal packaging, getting those big chunks of cash in. Once you've done that, you've got your own cash, and then you move to level 3, which is assets. And assets is basically your pension pot. It's like low risk, low return, boring assets. We've got about 300 houses, I think, and apartments, and now probably 250 of those are on 5-year leases. They're commercial buildings, they're retail. Then there's nothing sexy or exciting about them. They're 5-year leases. There's no voids, no tenants, no maintenance. new people who are like, yeah, but that's not all your money out, 20% ROI and all that. I'm like, no, because that's level 1. At level 3, I want 6 to 8% return on my cash. I want 5-year guaranteed income. I'm not interested in the noise and the sexy top line. I'm interested in being able to next week fly to wherever and spend time with my family and not worry about, tenants sleeping with each other or drinking each other's milk or not paying the bills and what price gas is going to be a month from now, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, in terms of getting through those sort of the pyramid per se, I suppose the kind of first initial steps, looking at, I suppose, going back a step then, someone that's potentially at that beginning of that pyramid, I assume could be in a job, or is this more needs to be business orientated? What's the view on that?
Well, the broad objective we say is to buy back your time. Because if you're working 5 days a week in a normal job, it doesn't matter how enthusiastic you are. There's only so much you can do evenings and weekends. And you throw your family on top of that, you're up against it. So whatever you need to do to replace your income, one way is to reduce your outgoings. Don't live in a 5-bed detached house with 4 empty rooms. Go and rent a room off your mum or whatever. Like, go and just downsize. Just get to that point where you sort of bought back your time. And you can do it with a job, or you can do it with a HMO portfolio, something like that. But that would be the first step. And if you did it in property now, the strategy we teach for level 1 is called back-to-back leasing. It's like rent to rent or rent to SA. But rather than rent a HMO off a landlord and then rent all the rooms out and change the beds and put your B&M canvases up and all that, you lease it off someone like me. I lease my buildings out. We've got one out to tender at the minute. Lease it to somebody that's hungry and young and enthusiastic. They'll lease 10, 20, 30 apartments off me. They'll then go and find an operator or the council or somebody to lease it off them, and they'll make a margin in the middle. And they might only make £100 a unit, but if you got the last portfolio we did was 72 units, 4 blocks of 16 and a block of 5. All of those went to interim operators who then leased them on to other people. And for those people to make, say, £100 a room, £150 a room on 16 units, that's £2,400 a month. You're nearly at the UK average salary there from a property you've never had to buy. You didn't need any money. I gave them 40 grand to do the refurb on every block. That's easy money. It's easy money in the fact that they don't have to put any capital up, but it's loads of running around. It's a load of headache. It's relocating tenants. It's managing refurbs. It's all the stuff I don't want to do, but they do. So it's a win-win. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So going from that level 1 sort of stage to the level 2, does that kind of require a different type of mindset to sort of go through the gears again?
Yeah, I think it's just about being intentional. When you're young and enthusiastic, we briefly spoke about it before we started recording. All you think is bigger must be better, work harder and smash it out the park, and more revenue means more profit. I did that with multi-let. I scaled it up to over 1,000 rooms around the UK. And I've never seen a profit margin disappear so quickly. It was probably more profitable when I had 400 units under management. But when you're younger, you don't have that wisdom. You think bigger is better. Making money is actually just very strategic. And again, Psychology of Money is a fantastic book. The Art of Spending Money, his follow-up book, the new one.
I've read that as well.
It's just the same vibe. Making money is actually quite boring. But as entrepreneurs, especially young ones, we get too enthusiastic. I think the main thing about going through the gears is just being highly strategic and really having someone who's walked the path before you. Like my investors were my 2 biggest mentors because they'd made their money and they sort of guided me on that path, which was slow and steady, and it did move through the gears. And I think because this is my 3rd decade in this and like probably 4th or 5th down market, a lot of the big names that went down are my friends. I saw them go down, and I would say in some capacities they had more experience and expertise than me, but they didn't stick to the basic rules of like leverage, overextending, securities, working capital, because a rising tide lifts all ships. Even a bad deal can convince you it's a good one when the market's with you.
Yeah.
You want to do deals at the minute based on the fact that it's quite likely you will wake up at some point in the next 6 weeks or 6 months and the market has tanked. And it's like, when that tanks and 80% of the market gets wiped out or deals get wiped out, where does that leave you? And I think whether it's the going through the gears or the 3 levels, it's just about having a really clear strategy, understand what works and what doesn't, and then following it. And the sad thing is, none of the logic of getting wealthy follows the natural desire to scale and sell and do bigger deals. And that's just social media.
Yeah.
If we didn't have social media, most people wouldn't be out doing the deals they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I see them all on social media. Some of them I know personally. And I'm like, I know, and you'll see them when they come around a few years later, they show this big deal. Look at this deal I've done. Everyone's like, wow, you're a hero. And then you hear behind the scenes a year later, 2 years, the whole thing's gone tits up.
Mm-hmm.
There was no money in it. Mm-hmm. It's been sold or flipped at a loss or repossessed. And that's the game that we play. So,
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I got fortunately to see behind the scenes at the Property Elevator, and I mean, a great show for, I suppose, helping people get started per se. And a lot of people that were standing there to pitch the deals, they were like insane deals, like in terms of like numbers. They were like, oh yeah, 20 million in central London, going to develop this out, need to get permission from, highways and Network Rail and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, well, what experience have you got? None. I'm like, it's like, just start with the basics, start with the simple stuff, make your way through the gears. But I suppose it is that social media trap of bigger's better, bigger turnover, more staff, more money, but actually boiling that down at the end of the day, what level of profit you're making, what risk are you taking? Is it all worth it in terms of, if you've got nothing to lose, I suppose, then, go for it. But if you've got something to lose, or you're creating something that is tangible that you may lose at some point, then it starts to change that perspective of risk. How much work am I putting in? Is this all worth it in the end?
Yeah, and I think 2 things to pull out of that. One is a really good friend of mine, and he's been my mentor for probably over 10 years, Daniel Priestley. He said to me when I wanted to scale multi-let, he said, just to let you know, this is going to be the most painful, challenging thing you've ever done. He says, but I could tell you your head is going to fall off and you still would want to do it. If you've got that ego, killer instinct, that boiling blood, that fire beneath your feet, and you've got to go out and scratch the itch, it doesn't matter how much people like you and I can sit here with the wisdom of, that is a bad idea. You're still going to do it, right? You're still going to, dive off the balcony into the swimming pool. Whatever, you're going to do it. So you have to do it and get out of your system. Just make sure it's a black eye and not a knockout. The second thing, I think, is one of the things I've realised coming back to development is because we've recently converted our portfolio into a family office. I don't know if I told you that or if you knew about that. No. On 1st of April, we converted what was previously our portfolio building company for third-party clients, including myself. We stopped doing deals for other people a few years ago and converted it into a family office. So I'm pretty much done with making my money now, but I've got to think about legacy and estate planning, and I still invest for like 5 families. So we've built this family office to take it to the next level. And I've had a new team in there to run that because I'm not involved on a day-to-day. And actually having gone back to development, and because I'm a developer, right? And I've got an FD and I've got a project manager and I've got an estates manager. I forgot how important the developer seat is. So I've sat them in, and they're basically, to be frank, following the lead of the architect on the planning application. And I can't believe how much input I've had to have on a strategic point of like, no, this is the scheme, this is the strategy, these are the nuances. Because a lot of people think, who are inexperienced, that in order you get a building, then you go and ask a planning consultant. Paul Higgs is a good friend of mine, and he speaks very frankly about this stuff. You speak to a planning consultant and they'll tell you what they think is the best scheme based on what will look prettiest, what their friends are doing, what their mate at the council says. But as a developer, you've got to know that stuff inside out. And actually, I forgot. We say don't trust the professionals on Property Entrepreneur and in our businesses. Like, you've got to know what you want, solicitors, planning consultants, architects, building regs. You've got to know what you want, and then you've got to basically tell them what to do. And I think for those people who don't know what they don't know, you're not going to make the money because the developer is where the money's made. If a planning consultant or an architect, no disrespect to them because we all need them, if they could develop, they wouldn't be doing that, without being, I'm not meaning to cause offense, I'm meaning to emphasize the significance of the developer as a seat and a skill set.
Yeah.
And that's only through building 1,000 units and knowing all the little intricacies that seem obvious, but nobody else would know them.
Absolutely. I mean, it is key, I suppose, the butt sort of lands with you, isn't it? And that you have to take responsibility for all of these various parts and moving parts. And I think when you, again, go through the shifts as a developer, you really need to understand and know your shit. Otherwise, you're going to get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, as we know.
And currently, and again, I'm glad that this is like a wider property conversation, and we don't want to discourage anyone from doing deals, property, business, because I love it. It's the most lucrative thing I've ever done. It's paid for me and my family to have, you know, the life that I always wanted. And it's phenomenal. I would recommend it to everybody. I'd recommend them listen to your podcast, understand, come and do programs like Property Entrepreneur. We do a 3-day annual retreat. It's basically cost price to show people the reality of it before they actually get into it. I would say soak all that up and definitely get on with it. But the minute, I know more developers who are losing money or facing going bust than making money. The developers I know that are making money right now is I could count on one hand. Everybody else, I'm looking at their sites and I'm like, that is either never going to get built or somebody's going to have a really bad day on it.
Yeah, it's a tough market for sure. To round the episode off, what do you believe is the sort of secret to success?
What do I think the secret to success is? I think the secret to success, twofold. I think probably one is you've got to understand what success is. So on Property Entrepreneur, again, every year we do a 12-year cycle, and one of the blueprints is called successes. And what it acknowledges is that every year the definition of success will change. When I started, all I wanted to do was pay the bills, never have a job. After that, I wanted to have a business and not do the rubbish work. Then I wanted a big national, amazing company. Nowadays, I just want to make a few million quid a year without any noise, without my phone ringing, being wherever I want, wherever I want. I think the first thing is people need to understand what success is for them. So that will show them where they are on the journey. And I've mentored people for nearly 20 years. That journey is very predictable. You know, the people who love it at day one, I'm saying, just so you know, you've got 7 years to get in, make your money and get out. Otherwise, you're going to be burnt to a crisp. You're going to be fed up. You're going to be, they're like, nah, you're not. I've sat on boards for some of these people and they get to year 5 and 6 and you see it happening. Now they're like clambering to try and get out of the business because it's eating them alive. The fun's gone, the sex is gone, you know, the sex appeal's gone. So I think that's the first thing for success. And I think the second, and this is the whole mantra of what we teach, is success and failure are very predictable. Success isn't like a magic wand or a magic spin at the roulette wheel. You show me any business model or deal, the strategy, the structure, the numbers, and I'll be able to, like, give me 100 of people are doing now, I'd be able to pick out the 5 that are going to be really, really good and make really good money before it's even started, and the other 95 that aren't even worth wasting your time on. And the reality is most people are building businesses and doing deals that don't make money. You want to be the crest of a wave, the niche, the needle in a haystack, that 1% who are doing the needle in a haystack deal that's actually making serious money. I would say that's the definition of success, is understanding not what to do, but like the 99 out of 100 things not to do.
And just to follow up very quickly then, are there sort of telltale signs from a personality or a person perspective that, you know, you speak to someone and you think they've got it, you know, is there anything that you could highlight on that sort of front?
When I look at someone say, yeah, they're going to be a success, 100%. I won't off the top of my head. I'll tell you one, Katie Harvey, who's one of our hosts on the Blueprint podcast. You'd have to come down and do 6 rounds with us on our podcast.
Yeah.
I did one with Katie Harvey recently. She's early 20s. And I met her, we do a 3-day summer retreat. And I don't do those, but she was on that. And I passed her, it was literally in a corridor in like a conversation over lunch. And I met her for maybe 2 minutes. And I said to Adam Goff, who's managing director of Property Entrepreneur, I said to him, I guarantee you she's going to be a huge success. She'll win the awards. She'll be on stage. I wouldn't be surprised if she starts working for you as a speaker and a host. And that was 3 years ago. And if you listen to that podcast, we did a chapter called The Secret Sauce, or a round called The Secret Sauce. And we were like, what is it? I can meet those people and you can just tell they're driven, they're focused. They ask questions rather than just burn your ear off telling you how amazing they are or whatever. They execute. They've got high standards. They're militant. One of them, whose name I won't mention, said to me once, I said, what do you think the hardest thing is about this journey? I sat on his board as a non-exec. And he said, I never realised how much courage it takes to actually take advice from a mentor. And what he meant was, when you're young and enthusiastic and optimistic and entrepreneurially naive, we all think everything's going to go right and we know everything and it's going to be amazing. And you look at people like me who are wise and old and boring and battered, and you think, oh yeah, but you're just out of it, you look blah, blah, blah. They don't they don't actually listen. And he said it takes courage to listen to a mentor. And I think that's probably one of the key things is they find someone who's done it. They listen to the difficult advice they don't want. Slow down, don't do that deal, don't gear up. And they actually take the advice. Because advice is 10 a penny. But if you can find a good person who knows what to do and you can actually follow it, that's a very, very rare trait. Katie Harvey's one of those people. And now she's hosting our super event this week. And she's like early 20s, been on Property Entrepreneur 3 years, I think. And she's absolutely killing it.
Amazing.
And not like that, you can see it from a mile away.
Hopefully a guest here soon then.
Absolutely. Check her out. Absolute superstar.
Great stuff. Well, if people want to find out more about Property Entrepreneur, how can they go about doing that?
Probably the easiest, our programs are 12 months long. The cheapest one's 15,000. The one I teach is 40,000. So it's a big time and capital investment. But every year we do an annual 3-day event. It's called the Blueprint Retreat. Go to theblueprintretreat.co.uk and you basically spend 3 days at a world-class venue. You'll meet all our mentors, speakers. You learn all of the blueprint. It's not a sales event. It's literally, here's everything you need. And when you get to the end of it, then you can decide, do you want to spend a year with us or do you just want to take it away and do it on your own? So check out the Blueprint Retreat and then follow me on Instagram, Daniel Hill Official. And then all the, I don't know what my handle is on all the other ones, but all of them. And the Blueprint podcast. We've got 300 episodes over the last 6 or 7 years. And every week I just give away what I've learned for free. So flick through any order, you'll find what you need and just listen to it, see what you think. And yeah, hopefully it will take you on your journey.
Amazing. Well, we'll put it all in the show notes and stuff, but I really appreciate you coming on today, Daniel.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for tuning in. Obviously a lot to unpack there from Daniel's perspective. Obviously heaps of experience, certainly stuff that I've taken away from this podcast as well. Obviously go and check out Property Entrepreneur, obviously details in the show notes. And when it comes to property, Daniel certainly knows his stuff. So hopefully see you again soon. As I always say, please do like and subscribe. And as I say, see you again soon.